Reed. I am a solutions architect at Marquee360. So I typically help our customers throughout the project lifecycle with demos like what we'll have today, but also with requirements gathering and configuration and training and ongoing support. Nice to see you all here.
Awesome. Thanks, Mia. So like I said, the agenda for today, I'm going to quickly go over Marquee, talk a little bit more about Microsoft Planner specifically. Mia's going to give the demo, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. We do like our demos and webinars to be interactive, so please, if there's any time throughout that you have a question, feel free to unmute and ask or put your question in the chat. Mia loves questions. All right, so a little bit about Marquee360. We are a Microsoft project management partner, mostly in the modern workspace. So what we do is we take your existing Microsoft investment, so Microsoft 365, and we build out those capabilities that you get out of the box with Microsoft. So we automate a lot of processes to give your team time to work on the work that matters, so they're not stuck manually doing things, and it just frees up some space for them. So as a company, our core focuses are on innovation, customer success, and support. So like I said, we build out capabilities on the Microsoft platform, and I'll show you a little bit more of what that looks like in the next few slides, but it's basically using the Power Platform to like I said, automate processes, give you a little bit more than you might out of the box with Microsoft solutions. And we constantly work with the Microsoft team to figure out what's coming on down the road with them, all of their new upgrades, and we tailor our products to fit that roadmap. For customer success, we work with our customers hand in hand during an implementation. So we do an extensive requirements gathering beforehand to make sure you're getting everything that your team needs and that our solution fits your business requirements. We also do training and workshops along with a hypercare support at the end of our implementations. And we just want your team to be as successful as possible with our solutions. If the rest of your team isn't able to use it, then we feel that it wasn't successful. So we like to just stay with you guys and offer any post-implementation support afterwards as well. And let's talk a little bit more about Microsoft Planner. So this is Microsoft's newest investment in the project and portfolio management space. And you might already be familiar with To-Do and Project for the Web. If you are, this will look really familiar. So what they did was they took those products, To-Do, Tasks, Project for the Web, and Planner, and put them all together in one place. So you get that modern UI and the drag and drop Kanban board feeling while building out your schedule. And it just gives you a little bit more capabilities than you had with, say, if you were just using Planner. And there's two ways you can use Planner right now. So like I said, you can use it out of the box for your schedule and task management. And then you can build off those capabilities by utilizing the Power Platform to give your company the enterprise capabilities that you might need if you have a bigger PMO. And what we did at Marquee360, we built a platform called PPM360, and this plays off of Planner. So we took those capabilities and built a pre-configured solution utilizing the Power Platform. So when you want to extend the capabilities, ours just is out of the box. So it gets you up and running faster with the pre-built apps. And what that does is it gives you an intake process, budgeting, resource management, portfolio and program management, and then reports in the end. So you get that all at once, and it just makes it easier for us to implement those capabilities for you. The great thing about it being built on the Power Platform, sorry, I just wanted to The great thing about it being built on the Power Platform is that it's very scalable and customizable to your business. So if you don't need the full product life cycle, say you might have an in-house product that you use, or your PMO is just not big enough to utilize the entire product, we can break it down into just the solutions that you need. So like today, May is going to talk a lot about intake. So we can just take our intake app and implement that into your system. Or if you need your PMO is heavy on budgeting, we can put our budgeting app um, into without you getting a bunch of products or solutions that your team won't use. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Mia.
All right, thanks so much for the intro, Erin. Like Erin said, today we're going to focus on project intake and what that process could look like. Part of our overall solution that is PPM 360 is specifically Intake 360, where we manage the requests that are being submitted by different people on the team. And then we also have an approval process that will create a project from an approved request. So that's what we'll be taking a look at today. And we'll go ahead and start the demo portion of things right now. What we're seeing on my screen now is the last slide, but I'll go back over to the browser for a sec. What we're seeing on my screen now is the PPM 360 homepage. So Microsoft creates Microsoft Planner, right, which is a wonderful mix of Microsoft To Do and tasks and everything that we need for task management. And what we do at Marquee 360 is we add on to that. We realize that when you're going through the project lifecycle, you will need more than just a place to store your tasks sometimes. You may need a place for risks and issues. Reporting works really well with all of those things too, so that you can visualize the data that you're collecting and start to make some informed decisions. Timesheets are an important part of that, and of course, intake. So that's where we'll start today, at the very beginning of the project lifecycle, looking at the Intake 360 part of the application. I'm starting off in PPM 360 on the home page just because it's my general starting page. On this page, it's a great place to be able to see high level some of the information about projects that are part of our portfolio here. But also our menu is on the left, which is really nice and helpful when it comes to navigating to different places. Erin mentioned earlier that our goal is to provide you with one connected platform or one connected experience. And that's part of how we accomplish this here. So at any given time, what you want to access is pretty quick and easy to get to. So you don't have to open up Power Apps and then open up Power Automate and then go to all these different places. From this menu, you can navigate around. And what we'll do is we'll use this project intake link here to access Intake 360. What we're going to see here is our first page is going to be an intake gallery. We're going to see a list of the requests that we have access to. And there is security that we apply to this. So what happens is that based on who you are when you log into the Intake 360 app, you may see different things. If you're an approver like I am, we're going to see quite a long list of requests there. A lot of times the security that we apply will set it up so that you're not overwhelmed when you log in. So for example, someone who's just routinely submitting a request, right, they might just see what they've submitted. Or they might see something if they have been identified as the project sponsor or the PM on that request. So there are a couple parts of this that we'll kind of take a deep dive into as we go through. First, when we're looking at the intake app, I'm going to hide our menu on the left here for now. But when we're looking here, this is where we see our list of existing requests. This page is already pretty informative. We can look here and see that there are a number of requests in here. We can also see where they are in the approval process. There's a status column here too to let me know that in this case, this one is submitted and we're still waiting on someone to provide their feedback. For a lot of these other ones, we can see that a project was created and there's even a link to the project here. If there's something on this gallery that we want to take a deeper look into, one thing that we could do is expand this section here. And this will let you see some high-level data about this particular request without opening it and navigating through the different pages. I really want to make sure that before we open a new request and start to walk through the steps, I want to make sure that we just talk a little bit about flexibility. Erin mentioned that we have a pre-configured solution, and that makes it very easy and quick for us to deploy that baseline solution, the out-of-the-box solution. And from there, what we typically would do is customize it so that it meets your needs. Those customizations could be, small details. For example, some customers will use project department, others will use business unit, right? So it could be small changes like that. But when it comes to the changes that we can make here, the sky's the limit, okay? And that's part of what we can talk about as we go through this. Erin mentioned earlier that I love questions. She was not joking. I really do love when you ask questions. It lets me know that you're out here and paying attention along with me. So please feel free to add any questions you have. You can just speak up or you can add them into the chat. And then Erin and I will keep an eye on the chat for you. All right, so we'll look at an out-of-the-box version of this app today, but I'll also try to walk you through what some of the possible changes are, just in case you're curious. The first thing that we'll do is just kind of take this from the top down. On this top title bar, you'll see that there are a couple of options here. So this admin one, if we set you up as an admin here, you'll be able to make some changes to the look and feel here. So I'm going to click on this. And I'm not going to make any changes here, but I just want to show you some of the possibilities. The color scheme that we have here, typically what we do is we personalize this for everyone that we deploy it for. So we'll make sure to ask you for, your organization's themes and color schemes so that we can set up these different parts to match that. And there are different themes that are available here. There are different themes that are available, right? And you can see, just kind of get an idea looking at this, right, that we can choose what this looks like. I'm not going to, go ahead and change this now, but these apply to different parts of the Intake360 app, and it can be, really nice to have something that matches your organization's design theme. So we'll stick with that. And it looks like I changed that, but I really didn't mean to, so I'm going to just switch it back. All right, there we go.
And Mia, there's a question.
Oh,
Sarah would like to know, could you add a project prioritization prior to projects being approved so they could be ranked before approved?
Definitely. We're going to get to see that as part of the request portion. So right now, this area where we're doing the intake, right, it is completely separated from the project area. So this is a great place to incorporate that type of prioritization. And when we start to create one together, it'll be page 3 of the app that we're going to open up, or the request that we'll create together. I will go ahead and just create a new request here. So if I click on new, it'll open up the new form for us. And as you'll see on the form, we can see the request status new, of course. And then also there are different pages over here on the left. Each page is going to have different information on it. Before we go into the different fields, I just want to bring up that each page, the names here, they don't have to be the same for you. And then also all the fields too. These can all be defined based on what your needs are. For the last question that came up, the scoring is what we can use to help us start prioritizing this. And when we get there, I'll talk a little bit about what some of our customers have done to customize the scoring and make it a tool that they can use to determine which ones they should prioritize. For now, we're going to start out and we'll take this page by page. On the request information page, we're looking for general information about the request that we're going to submit. So looking at this, a lot of this, I think, would be what you would expect to see. There are some things that are pre-filled too. One of the things that we love to do for our customers is to eliminate the need to enter in data that the system can populate itself. So we're not going to ask you to put in a requested by. We'll start you off with a name, and then if you need to change it, you can. Same with the date. We also like to include, where possible, helper text. Sometimes, especially in the beginning when people are starting to adopt this or any tool, it's a little bit of a learning curve. We offer training with every implementation. So anytime that we set up something like this, we typically would do UAT, user acceptance testing, but also a training part where you would be able to have us walk you through exactly how to use this. For now, I'm going to enter in the project name, and we can see that there's a best practice here to avoid special characters. So we're going to keep that in mind. I also wanted to just show that there are some things that are built in here so that if, for example, we give this the name of an existing request, it will warn us that we're doing that. Okay, so it's telling me that this name already exists. So that helps, because if we do have duplicate names, it starts to be a little bit confusing for the approvers, even for the original requester, right? So there are some things that we'll build in here to help guide the person filling this out so that they know, they don't make any mistakes that would cause an issue later on. I'm going to go ahead now, and I'm just going to put in a name for our new request. We'll start to go through some of these different fields here. All right, so we'll name this after our webinar. Some of the fields here are, related to the department. All of these drop-down values that you see on a list like this, not only are these, customizable, but they're customizable by you and your team long-term. Part of our admin training includes showing you where to access the app on the back end, and then how to make updates, like to change the departments and things like that. Sometimes, as you use this, and hopefully use it for many years, things may change within the organization. So we want this to be a product that moves and changes along with you. I'll go next to the project sponsor, and you'll see that this is just a lookup. So it's looking up to our Active Directory. I can type anybody's name in here and then start to get in the matching entries. I'm going to select myself for this one. The request type is a really interesting field, where you have to think a little bit ahead on this one, right? If we're thinking about the request type, it could just be that the requester knows that, based on a department, they're going to select that, and that'll choose what type of project gets created. But this request type field, what this does is it dictates what type of project we're about to create when this gets approved. So for your organization, you may have different types of projects. In this case, an individual project, it has a very quick and easy schedule template. And it's got, some project fields that will fill in. A marketing campaign, for example, can just be a team's team, so that the team can start to collaborate once this gets approved. An IT project has a much more in-depth project schedule that's attached to it and a full project governance workflow. The Agile DevOps type here, this one will actually create a project that's going to sync over with Azure DevOps. So as the team is working in this tool, and the development team is working over in DevOps, there will be a sync between whatever data you choose. All right, this one will have a standard Six Sigma DMAIC schedule. I'm going to go with a standard project for today, which will give us a standard PMBOK project schedule template and a nice little workflow that goes along with it. And then, some of these other fields, these vary for all of us. A big part of this also is starting to enter in information about this request so that the next person that's going to look at this to review and make a decision has the information they need. So I'm sure you can imagine we would want a project description and a description of the problem that we're hoping to solve by creating this project, the value that it'll give our organization, we can fill in here too. And then essentially we just work page by page. There is an option to save this as a draft. So if I'm in the middle of working on this and I realize that I need to run to a meeting, or maybe somebody pings me and I'm going to start a conversation with them, I can always save this as a draft and then come back to it later on. So that's a really useful feature. One of the other things I'll note here is that there are some fields that are required, right? And with the required fields, I think this goes without saying, but in order to submit this for approval, the required entries have to be in there. So as you can see, when there is a required field that is missing an entry, what we'll do is we'll notice here on the page that there is no check mark. The check mark is meant to show us that there are no required fields that need entries on that page. So we'll see when I paste this project name back in here, the check mark shows up again. So it's a nice visual indicator that we are ready to move forward to the next page. I'm going to go to project details, and this page is more geared toward what that project would look like if we do approve it and move forward. So we're proposing a lot here. We don't know exactly, when this will get approved, but we can say that, we're thinking about something that will start, let's say November 1st. And then our proposed end, we can go ahead and select a date in here too. For the purposes of this, we'll say we're going to end right before the holidays. And then we can also add in a proposed go live date. We are careful about what we make required because there are some things that, we may not be able to say at this point. So we try not to make those required so that somebody doesn't get stuck on this request. The proposed budget, this can be helpful for making decisions, but also, again, it might be something that we don't necessarily have right now. The proposed benefits are also pretty important to let us know how this will benefit us financially going forward. And then, of course, a description of our benefits. So there's the monetary field for that, but also, more of a descriptive field where we can type things out. Now, these are examples. We built this based on best practices and what we hear as feedback from a lot of our customers. But I need you to keep in mind that the fields that you see here, you're not exactly tied to. This is more of a starting point. And now we'll go over to the scoring. Now, the scoring part is really interesting and it can be really helpful. Right here, we're able to start to prioritize this a little bit. Right now, we've got a lot of information about the request itself and what type of project would be created and when that project would take place. But once we submit this, we have to keep in mind that we're going to be comparing this to several other intake requests. So being able to score these and have a nice basis for that scoring is really important. Our out-of-the-box solution starts with these 5 scores that you see. Some of the things that we've done for our customers is, add in a completely different set of scores, right? It really all comes down to what is important for you as a business, right? So that's what we try to incorporate here on the scoring page. Your business drivers, and then the scores or the ratings that go along with those business drivers. So if we look at this example here in the first one, expanding into new markets and segments, we'll see that there are 5 possible ratings. The thing that really makes these ratings useful is that we have some way to quantify things. So there is a description here, and that really helps the requester, right? So help them know what to select. If they need to ask for help from somebody, they can, but at least there's a guideline here so that we know we're measuring everything based on the same criteria. This also helps the reviewers to know, that exactly what to expect. So I'm going to go ahead and select option 3 here. We're going to grow revenue from new markets and segments by 500K to 1 million. All right. And then you'll see as I select that, it starts to work as part of the priority score. Now, we use this as a demo environment daily. And to make demos easy, what we do is we show the number here, and then we just show you that we're adding up the numbers from each one of these scores. In real life, we don't always do it exactly that way. What's more popular is that we would go ahead and, maybe hide the number, but the priority score can be an average, it can be a weighted average, and it might all depend on, some other items in the form. When we talk about customizations that we've made for other customers, one customer needed a different set of priorities based on what type of project they were going to create. So when it comes to the intake form and some of the options you have here, you can have things show conditionally. So if we were to choose that our request type was an individual project, we might not need any scoring for that, right? We know that we're not going to be putting a lot of resources or anything into that, so it might not matter as much. We might not need different scores there for sure. So there are things like that to consider. Also with the form overall, right? It might be that if we are using this for the IT department, they're going to have different fields that they need to capture than, let's say, a department that's focused on new product development. So we can make the fields on here conditional based on other entries that are made on the form. And then back over to scoring, each one of these, you'll see that there are guidelines. Sometimes our customers will have trouble with these guidelines and ask us to put something more like, high, medium, low. But what we look out for there is that everybody could have a slightly different definition of high, medium, or low. So we try to keep that in mind and, work with you to come up with something that you are comfortable with. And what we get at the end is a priority score. Are there any questions out there that maybe I've missed?
There is one from Rishi. Not everything is a project. We have a defined criteria for an idea to be called project. Before initiating project intake process, could you show us the flexibility to build that in PPM 360?
All right. So part of that is all defined by how your organization works with those and what's needed to make even that first determination about, what should be a project and what shouldn't. One of the things that we'll see here is that, we can use this to collect ideas, right? And then based on what we're seeing here, we might have it set up so that, the idea gets submitted and then somebody that's going to be an approver will say, well, this shouldn't be a project or this should. And then if it is going to be a project, it goes through another level of approval and kind of to see what we need in order to make this project start. So you might want to do something like that, where there are multiple levels where we make those different determinations at each level. That is a common thing for our customers to do, is to have those different levels. And at each turn, they decide what's going to happen with this item. It could be that, some things get rejected or more information is requested, and then it takes a different turn into something else. So we would work with you to define what exactly you need to see and what should happen along with each step. Some of our customers also, they have ideas in one place, but then the group of people that are going to be working in this app is a smaller group, and they're only taking in certain things that have been approved by whomever, right? So there are different ways that this could be handled. And I think also it might be worth just having a conversation about, what exactly your needs are, and then talk through some of those other options. I will also just show the attachment area. A lot of times with these requests, there could be supplemental information that would be useful. Maybe there was a project similar to this that was completed before, and we've got our lessons learned or something like that. It could be an export of that other project schedule. It could be a document that we used during that implementation that would be helpful here. So attachments, it's really quick and easy to add those. I'm going to go ahead and just do one quick attachment. One thing to note about these attachments also is that if you'd like, these attachments can carry over into the project. And that way, when this request is approved and the project is created, that attachment will still be there as part of the project. So now not only do we as the approver have access to this attachment and the information that it helps to provide, but also the project team going forward would have access to that too. Our next step is going to be to submit this and go through an approval process. Before I click on submit, well, actually, I'll click on submit. We can open up another one if we need to. But I do want to check in with Rishi and everybody else on the call just to see, Rishi, if your question was answered in a way that you liked, or to see if anybody else has any questions about this intake form portion of things. How are you all doing out there?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
But I have a follow-up question. I also wanted to see in PPM 360, there's a flexibility to add weightage to the prioritization criteria in the scoring section.
Yes, we'll look at that too. Um, so even though this one is kind of geared towards intake, I do plan to go over to the project area and we'll look at a few things there too. If we have to do some prioritization in the project area, there are some different ways we can handle that too. All right, and then someone's asking if we have a file in a SharePoint site, can we link it to the project instead of uploading the file? The answer to that is yes. Um, there's actually a project that we were doing training on just yesterday where they chose to do that. And well, actually, they chose kind of a hybrid. They have the section where you can upload files that we just saw, but then right below that, they also have a place where you can, have files that they shared and just put the URL in there. Right, so there's some flexibility there too. All right. Any other questions about the intake form before we start to talk about the approval process? While I'm in this gallery, I will just kind of show that I mentioned earlier, I'm an approver in the system, so I'm seeing a long list here. If this list is, getting pretty long and you need to find something quickly, there is a nice search feature here. And it opens up this search pane. So we can see that right now there are 225 requests, right? A lot of these, as we can see, have already been approved or rejected and they don't need attention. But if I am looking for something specific, I can start to use the search criteria here. And one of the things that I like about this search criteria is that I don't need to know, the exact start of a project or a request name. I need to know. It's just one little part of it. So if I just start to type in IN, right, I'm seeing everything that has an IN in it. That is going to give me, 73 results, right? But I can start to type in more to really narrow these down. So now I'm seeing more of these webinar projects, right? And you can layer these. So if we want to look at the requester, so everything that was requested by me, right? So we can layer these to really refine our search and then really find the one that we're looking for, which helps a lot, right? And then there's a reset here. So if you want to see the full list again, the reset will bring everything back. As we go through the process, we'll see that there is this little grid here that tells us what's submitted, pending, right? And then really pending is pending approval. And then the last step will be the project created. If we are a requester and we are kind of anxiously wondering how things are going here, this refresh button can really help us. It'll refresh this page so that we'll get to see as this moves through these different approval stages. Now, when it comes to the approval, there are a couple things I want to show you. So the first thing is that as an approver, I am being notified that there is something out there ready for me to approve. Our approval process, we built that using Microsoft Power Automate. You'll notice here that I'm in Power Apps, right? Power Automate is part of Microsoft's Power Platform as well, and it allows us to detail out what happens with these approval steps. So there's a trigger, us clicking submit on this form, and based on that, we can write the Power Automate flow to take certain actions. In the example that we'll see today, some of those actions, one of them, the first one is to send a notification to the requester and let them know that their request was submitted. The second thing that'll happen is that the approver or approvers will get notified. And we have our flow written so that the approvers will get notified in two different ways. So first is in Teams, because we all spend a lot of time in Teams. If we go over to the activity section, we'll see here, when people have tagged us in messages, so a reaction to a chat that I didn't read yet is here, but also our request here. So if I'm in Teams and I see that activity section light up and I see this request to approve here, I can just come over here and do everything I need to from this screen. We'll see here that there's high-level information from the request that we submitted together. So our project description, our go live date, if we had added one, our value that it provides the organization. So when we're building this for you, we can talk about what information from the request you'd like to see in this approval request. The most important part of this is a link back to the actual request, just in case we want to be safe and review it before we actually approve it. And then here at the bottom, you'll see that we can reassign this. We can also approve this, we can reject it, and we can add comments as well. I'm going to move this over and show you one other place where the request for approval shows up. Okay, and that is Outlook. So in my Outlook inbox, which we'll see in just a moment, in my Outlook inbox, we'll see a similar request for approval. Now there, I can choose whether I'm going to approve this in Teams or in Outlook. Really, it just comes down to, where I am first. So if I'm already in Teams, I'll go ahead and approve or view the request directly from there. But if I'm already in my Outlook inbox, I'll probably do it from here. Either way, it's the same. One of the things that you see, like when we give notifications and they show up in more than one place, I really want you to know that you don't have to do the same action in two places. We would never set up anything for you that would require that. You'll just be able to choose whichever one you like more and then make the update there. So I'm going to go over to Power Automate, this email. We'll see exactly what we saw in Teams earlier. We'll get to see that there are some fields from the request to display here. There's a link to the request. One thing I want to note, I didn't bring this up when we were in Teams just now, but approve and reject are here. For our demo environment, we don't really need more than this, but typically we'll also include at least one more, which is to request more information. Maybe, we need to, before we can make a decision about approving this, we need some more information from the requester. It could be that one of these was unclear. Maybe in this case, this is in Latin, we need them to submit it in English, right? So we'll go ahead and request more information, put that comment in there, and then we'll get the information we need. In this case, I'm going to approve just to make things easy for today. I'm going to enter in a quick comment and then I'll submit. When we are requesting more information, we enter in a comment in there. It's really useful because that comment goes back to the requester. So they know exactly what we're looking for. Same with if we reject something, that goes back to the requester too. So they know why it was requested. As you can see in my inbox here, I did get a notification when the request was submitted. So just to let me know. And then also, now that it's approved, there's a link or there's an email letting me know that this was approved. There's a link to the request, and then the comment written by the approver is here. All right, so I'm going to move that inbox out of the way, and I'll just refresh here. Things are a lot slower for me than normal today, and I'm not sure if it's because of the nasty weather that's on its way to my area because of the tropical storm, or if it's something else. But here, now that we've refreshed, we're able to see that this was approved, and now it's creating the project. So that Power Automate flow took our entry that we added in there, and it's creating the project right now. What I'm going to do from here, we could wait for it, but instead I'm going to go over to the project area, just in the interest of time here. I'm getting a notification letting me know that I was added to a new project. So as we start to assign people to this project, they'll get similar notifications. I'm going to go over to our menu on the left here and navigate over to the projects area. What we're going to see here is a list of all of the projects. The projects show up in different views, and the views in this area are really nice. One of the things that's great about these views is that a lot of them can be editable. So when we look at a view like this is the My Active Projects view. So I'm seeing projects where I'm the project manager and projects that are active, right? They haven't been closed yet. So this is typically, oh, yes.
Sorry, really quick before we get any further into the project. There was another question. Could Power Automate support multiple approval levels in the workflow needed in a large organization?
Definitely, yes. Power Automate is an amazing tool that allows us to put in, a lot of different details, right? And what we do with that kind of multi-stage approval is we just build out each stage, right? And for each stage, we can build out what the criteria are. We can identify, how the system will know who the approvers are. We can identify what the rules are for those approvers at each stage. So maybe we have 5 approvers and all 5 need to approve for the final stage to create a project. Maybe we have a stage where there are multiple approvals and we just need a majority. So all of those details, right, along with who should get a notification and what the approval options should be, we build all of that into the Power Automate flow, and Power Automate works really well with adding in those different kind of branches and layers. So we can definitely do that. Let's see, I think we're okay in the chat for now. I'm going to go ahead and we'll look at just one other view. This comes back to one of the other questions that came up. With the views, I mentioned that you can edit in these views. So this particular view, I wouldn't really make any edits here, like my start date and a finish date, right? But I want to just click on this and show you that when I click in these, I do have a cursor and I can make changes in these views, right? So your views that are set up become really important in this way because they're not just a way to look at the information about our projects, they're a way that we can interact with our projects and start to make updates. And with this type of grid view where we can make these comparisons, one thing that we can do is prioritization. So we do have some of our customers that use this for prioritization. And in that case, there is a view for it, and we can use this to set up different criteria. Now, these fields, as far as strategic alignment and lowering costs, the risks, these are all fields that we can have in the project, but we can show them here too if we want to start to compare different projects. With each view, another thing that we can do, we can define the columns, of course, but we can also add in different filters. So if we want to look at a bunch of projects that are part of the same portfolio, or projects that all are in the same department, we can use our filters and our different views to get those all into one section and then start to make some comparisons. Now, this is one quick and easy way to do this within the project area. Another area where you can do a type of analysis, even though it's not as, here we can type directly into these and choose a rating, right? And when we can use these ratings to really narrow things down. If we just want to look at strategic alignment, ones that are strong, and then compare those projects, right? We can do that with these views really easily. But I was going to say that Power BI is also a nice place where you can do these types of comparisons and then start to see what you should move forward with. I will take a quick look at Power BI. The first page in our Power BI report pack, and we have a standard Power BI report pack that comes with PPM360. Our first page in this report pack is related to the intake requests. So if we needed to look at the overall requests in the system and start to make some decisions, or maybe even see which ones are needing some attention, the request dashboard can really help us with that. On the request dashboard here, there are different visuals at the top. And just a quick bit of background for anybody that may not be familiar with Power BI. Power BI has these filters that we can use to zero in on specific data, but we can also interact. So if we want to look at requests by status and maybe take a look at the requests that have been submitted but nobody's acted on yet, this number here is pretty high. We're not going to worry because, of course, it's a demo environment. We don't need to act on all of these. But in real life, this would be a little concerning. This lets us know that all of these were submitted, but nobody acted on them, not to approve, reject, or anything. What we can do is we can use this and start to think about, how our priority scores for these compare with each other, and then start to make the next steps to tell somebody to go and approve this demo from 2.9, right? Because the priority score is higher than the other ones that we're looking at here. We can also use other fields like the budget to help us make those decisions. We can start to incorporate any of the fields that we captured on the request form into a report like this. So what's great there is that whatever you need to look at and make those decisions, the tools are flexible enough to accommodate that. All right, so there are different ways that we could do this. We might not just want to look at what's submitted, but maybe we want to look at requests by type. Maybe we're noticing that we've got a lot of these IT requests. So maybe we need to pay attention to some of the other ones, right? So we can use this to really drill down into those and make some decisions. One of the other things that I really wanted to show as a follow-up to everything that we did with intake, and I'll just kind of quickly navigate back over to the intake area to start showing this, just as a reminder. But remember that when we were filling out the intake request, we had a choice between the request type, right? We saw that some projects are going to be a very light project and maybe just have a short schedule, maybe a workflow. Some projects types would interact with Azure DevOps. Some were going to be more long projects. So that selection and the ability to make a selection like that, it can affect what type of project we create. So I'm going to open up this draft here. Or actually, I'll go to a new one so that we just pay attention to that one field that I want us to look at. And on the new form, what we'll look at is the request type field. And that request type is where we'll be able to see a list of the different types of requests. So we had a field here with different options. So individual project, right? The marketing campaign, we talked about just being a Teams channel. The IT project is much more fleshed out. The standard project is here with just a PMBOK schedule template. So these different request types can create different projects. And I have a couple of examples open here that I'd like to show you. So first, I want to show an example of a light project. For a light project, we have these for our customers that may be new to a platform like this, and maybe they don't need to, capture a ton of details for the project. So what we give them with Project Light is a way to track a workflow if they would like one, but also general information about the project, task information, of course, but then also things like risks and issues, and of course, a weekly status report. Okay. Some groups that we work with, and we work with a really wide variety of companies. Some of them are working to adopt things, and they really work with that crawl, walk, run theory. So we start them out with intake and a light project type like this. It's a great way to get started and get used to the system, and then you can add more as you move forward. So with this tasks, this will just be the schedule portion of things. So the planner part of things are coming in through here. The risks is based on best practices, so it's very straightforward. Same with issues, right? So that allows you to do that level of tracking there. And then also for the status, to submit a weekly status report. There are reports in our report pack that go along with these. Several that are related to the schedule, a risk dashboard, an issue dashboard, and our Power BI reports also have a project status report. For other customers, they might be needing something more. So in that case, and I'm saying, this could be based on, your organization, what you're ready for. It also could be, like we were saying, based on the project type. So what we'll see in this one is that this is going to have more along the top here on this first tab. So now here we can do some light financial tracking, right? The charter and a lot of these other fields, the information that we enter in on intake, a lot of times we carry that over into the project. When we do that, that information is still editable, but it's a nice head start for the project manager so that they don't have to start from scratch re-entering some things that were done on the intake request. Like I was saying earlier, we never want you to have to do any type of dual entry like that. So if we can carry something over and pre-populate it for your PMs, we are thrilled to do that. But this type of project has some light financial tracking. We can put in some financial fields if we have them. The tasks, of course, are still here. We can build out a resource team. In addition to the risks and issues, we can also track things like our changes and our decisions, and of course, our lessons learned, which is very helpful. All right, and then for our customers that do more of a deep financial integration or more financial tracking, we do have another version. It's an add-on module called Financials360, where we do take financial tracking to another level. So here we get to track our budget, our actuals, our forecast. The top part here is showing a roll-up of all the information that's entered in below. And at the bottom, you can see we enter in different line items to track our budget for these line items. So we just go month to month and put in the values. The same for our actuals. As each month goes by, we put in the actuals. Our forecast we can maintain, but this even goes deeper to allow us to track things like purchase requisitions and purchase orders and invoices. And these can be manually entered, or they can sync with another application that you use to track purchase requisitions, invoices, and purchase orders. When we do that type of integration, we do definitely involve your finance team. And then that way, just make sure that we're all on the same page as far as what data should map and how often the sync should happen, whether it's going to be a one-way sync or two-way sync, whatever feels good for your team. So you have these different options here when it comes to creating a project. And a lot of this stems from Intake. So I know our focus today was intake. We did take a deep dive into the intake form. We got to look at the intake approval process. And then we got to see some of the things that are a result of intake, right? Like the type of project that we get to create. We got to see how we can do scoring on the intake form, but then also how if we need to do more scoring in this project area, how we can accommodate that as well. One of the other things, just kind of with scoring and kind of prioritizing these in different levels, it could be that something here is proposed, right, while we review it. And then we use our proposed project view to compare these projects, or our proposed filter in the Power BI reports. So a quick side note there. But we got to see how we are creating different projects based on our intake requests. We got to see that in Power BI, we've got multiple report pages that come as part of our report pack, but the first one there was related to intake. So it allows you from another perspective to really take a deep dive and see how things are going with your intake requests. All right, we have just a few more minutes. So if you have other questions, go ahead and add those into the chat or just speak up. There's a great question I see in the chat right now about PPM360 interfacing with other tools. We often integrate with other applications. A lot of them are on the Microsoft platform, but a lot of them are not part of the Microsoft platform, right? So there are connectors that are available that'll help us to connect to other applications. And then we also use Power Automate for that as well. I'll stop talking for a minute so that you can add any other questions.